payouts that have been happening for companies that don't really have anything to do with the actual situation have got more and more ridiculous. Like there's that Geico case where a woman had sex with a man in a car who was covered by Geico. She caught an STD. She then expected Geico to pay for her pain and suffering. And they're like, we just insured this guy for car insurance. We didn't tell you to go fuck in this car. Like, we don't know what we don't check the STD status of the people that we insure. That is ridiculous. But yet, she was awarded $5.2 million by a judge. This is actual news. $5.2 million by Geico. They turned down $1 million offer and ended up having to pay $5.2. But even $1 million is ridiculous. What the fuck does Geico have to do with someone catching an STD? I mean, seriously. Maybe the condom company. Now, okay, you have Geico condoms always break, and you know that they've been breaking, but you try to save money, and your janky condoms, now I have chlamydia. Okay, I get it. But Geico Insurance, that have no idea about anyone's STD status. You could have full-blown AIDS and get an insurance policy from somebody, right? But now, you see what I'm saying?
Look, the American justice system is a moving thing. It's a fluid thing. It can be bent and used in so many different ways. But I want to go back to what you were saying, because I think it's a very, very legitimate point. And I saw Kevin Liles discuss protecting Black art. And, he was at the stand at the YSL case, and they asked him about this concept of hip hop being put on trial. And he said, I've been fighting this battle for years, and they've always gone after and villainized hip hop. And I don't think that's fair. I think something is happening in hip hop, which is that kids, very talented young kids from very rough places, are making art, and then they're getting arrested. And the two are kind of not necessarily related. And when one of these young, talented kids who's making good art gets arrested, a third thing happens. And it's a guy with a check. And he comes and he says, hey, you're doing great. Here's $10 million. Do more of it. Mm-hmm. And that kid's going to get, 10%, 5%? He's a kid. He actually just popped. He knows nothing. He's probably going to get fucking 2% of his yearly earnings. And that model is really dangerous. And that model is really flawed. And that model needs addressing. But I think, and you're right, I think people are going to start trying to hold these people criminally responsible for the labels. But I don't think that's going to stop it. And, I hate to be all fucking tree hugger with this shit, Vlad. But if you want to stop young, talented kids who are making beautiful art from getting arrested, you have to change the circumstances that they are in. And we are talking once again in 2022 about the lack of education, the lack of opportunity, the amount of animosity between police officers and communities in our inner cities across this country. And it is unacceptable. We got, right, I think Pac's birthday just passed, and there was a member of Congress reading his lyrics on the House floor. We got money for wars, but we can't feed the poor. And it's absolutely fucking true. And it's beyond me at this point that we literally print money for anything and everything. And yet we've never been able to print money to solve the very real problem of innocent, talented, promising, bright youth getting locked up in horrible circumstances in our inner cities. It's a shame. It's a tragedy. I don't think suing the record labels will help. I think what we really, really, really need to do in this country is sit down and say, this is an opportunity. This is God telling us that, these kids need help. That's all this music is. This music is a message that, hey, this is what's happening in your inner city. This is what's happening in your high schools. This is what your kids are listening to. I was outside of St. Peter's Preparatory School, and the high school football team was practicing. And I bought a coffee from the local coffee shop, and I thought, I'm going to sit there and watch this practice. I saw these kids go at it. It was beautiful. And the whole time I was listening to the music, and it was 22 G's. was Kodak Black. It was NBA Youngboy. It was fucking violent. It was talking about guns. It was talking about killing. And I thought to myself, this isn't what kids should be listening to, but they are.
Yeah, I mean, listen, but I grew up in high school listening to NWA, which is really just as violent.
But it's been 20 years, Vlad.
Yeah, it's been 20 years. And now it's, I mean, and back in NWA's day, they weren't naming the specific gangs that they were in. But then DJ Quick changed that. He named specifically what blood set he was in. And then that started a chain reaction where people started claiming the type of Crip they are, the type of blood they are. You know what I mean? The GDs, the BDs, and so forth. Chicago created a whole almost a new genre. You know, Chicago drill, where you're talking about smoking your enemies and so forth. Like, you know, and then the social media put a bunch of fuel in that fire that was never there before. Now you have the fans interacting. Now people are DMing you all this stuff. Now anything that's said about anybody, you will know about it within 5 minutes. And then that spread into Brooklyn drill and into the Bronx. And now you have 22 G's who's being charged with attempted murder. Now you have K Flock. But then you have all these other cases. There was that big case in the Bronx where, remember, like all those drill rappers that are basically rapping about each other, they all get arrested for a bunch of shootings and so forth. It's a different animal, and I think it's mostly because social media, because you never had that aspect of it before. You know, Tupac does Biggie, you know, would have to go into the studio and record something and press it up and then release it. And by the time that happens, he's probably thinking, well, you know something, let me not bother to do that. You know, fuck all this. They can't just go straight, you know, to Instagram and post a response right then and there. That just wasn't available before. It's a whole different world. And yeah, I mean, listen, I hope it all works out and all these guys get out and it's determined that they had nothing to do with nothing. But, you know, but even when I talked to George Cheedy, like, Young Thug actually in his songs, and this is part of the case as well, actually breaks down all the gangs that he was affiliated with in his music. Now you could say it's just black art, but he's breaking down things that are going along with the things that he's being charged with. You can't say I've never been in a gang, but you're actually talking about all the gangs that you're in. It is what it is. I mean, you're claiming, you know, blood and slime and everything else like that, and then you can say, oh, it's just art, you know, but you saw how well that worked in the Tekashi case.
Look, the lawyer's job is to distinguish somebody who is in a gang versus somebody who has violated the RICO law. Mm-hmm. And right now, from what I've seen in that case, is prosecutors saying really the former, that they've established that this guy's in a gang as we commonly understand it. I don't know that the prosecutor's going to make the RICO case, but my bigger critique of this issue is we have a real problem with gang violence, with violence in rap, with guns, and we have absolutely no solutions. Look at what happened up here in New York with Tekashi 6ix9ine. We, in theory, took the gang leader, the guy who was responsible for creating all sorts of mayhem and mania and really promoting it nationally, internationally. Mm-hmm. And what did our justice system do with him? Gave him a tap on the wrist. Said, hey, here's your get out of jail free card.
Yeah, less than a year, right? Or maybe exactly a year, or something of that sort. Well, but that's because he overly cooperated. He took the stand. He gave information they weren't even asking about because
I understand all that, but
right.
I just
and the thing about it is that you have a group of men now in the YFN case. Like imagine what would happen if Young Thug said, you know something, I'm cooperating against everybody. I'm going to tell on Gunner. I'm going to tell on Yakati. I'm going to tell on YFN Lucci, my friends and enemies. I'm going to tell on the 27 other guys. Like, I'm going to give you something on each and every one of them. I will take the stand as many times as you want me to. Let's not forget, I just interviewed Sammy the Bull. He admitted to 19 murders and got less than 5 years. Everyone was in it. Oh, how could this mass murderer, this serial killer get less than 5 years? Well, I'll tell you why. Because he went to, I believe, 6 different trials, took the stand for 2 years. He got 2 mafia bosses indicted along with like 20 something other people, a bunch of captains, crooked cops, crooked Teamster, leaders and so forth. He overly cooperated, gave them everything that they could possibly get from this high ranking person. But I don't think Young Thug is going to do that. You know what I'm saying? Because he knows that if he does that, I don't think he'll have a career coming out. He'll probably have to go into hiding afterwards. I don't think he'll be able to pull a Tekashi and just say, yeah, I'm a snitch and I'm a rat. I'm going to do rat videos and I'm ratting and snitching. I don't think that'll work for Young Thug.
I don't think it's working for Tekashi.
It's not really working for Tekashi. But you know something? He does, well, depending on how you look at it, because I've seen some shows that look like they were sold out with a whole bunch of screaming white kids that could give a shit about the whole snitching thing. But he was a different type of artist. You know what I'm saying? He was more of a pop, kind of artist, I feel.
But don't you think that we kind of failed as a criminal justice system? That if we were handing out a kingpin charge in this case, he's getting one of the kingpin charges, and he walks after doing less than a year.
Yeah.
And what's the climate like in the Bronx and uptown and throughout parts of Brooklyn where him and his gang members were running? Is it significantly improved? Is there a sense of justice? I don't feel it. My worry, my fear is that we have so many prosecutors spending so much time arresting people, and there's no consideration being given for how to stop the cause. How do we prevent these issues? How do we stop being so redressive and punitive and responsive? And where do we get proactive and say, hey, let's make it so that when you have this young, talented kid who's making good music, what resonates with people isn't headshot. Let's have people resonate with something else.
Yeah.
And I think the answer is very simple. It's this degradation that we see throughout society, where in the interest of the almighty dollar, if it makes money, it makes sense, we are so willing to let just so much crap go. Look at the cannabis industry in New York. The cannabis industry in New York was built off this idea that we're going to have equality and we're going to give redistributive justice and we're going to be responsible cannabis users. How is selling 30% Laffy Taffy in a rainbow colored package responsible marijuana usage?
Yeah, I was busting the other day actually from a van.
How is letting 6 corporations whose only interest is to increase their bottom? They have one duty, a duty to a shareholder. Mm-hmm. The shareholder has one concern: money.
Right.
How does it make sense to take all of this market and hand it over to 6 large companies and let them fulfill their duty of making the most money possible?
Well, Moe Gangat, appreciate you coming in and really breaking things down. You have a lot of armchair lawyers on the internet.
I don't have any armchairs.
Who claim they know what's happening and break everything down and so forth. But I like to bring actual real lawyers to come in and speak on what's happening. And I appreciate you coming in all these times and really breaking things down. I think a lot of people have really gotten enlightened from, you talking about these cases in the past. And from what I understand, a lot of people actually call and actually give you some business also from these DJ Vlad interviews.
Yo, shout out to DJ Vlad. I'm actually not a criminal lawyer. I'm an employment lawyer in New York City, and we do cases on behalf of workers who've been victims of sexual harassment, discrimination. They get hurt at work. And many people call me and they say, hey, yo, I saw you on DJ Vlad. And I'm like, that has nothing to do with employment law. I'm like, nah, I still want you to be my lawyer. I'm like, all right, let's do it. So shout out to you, Vlad. I will be back here next time with more details to share. Try to bring you guys that good information and give you some perspective. Always a pleasure.
That's what it is, Mo. Until next time. Peace.